So with a Memorandum of Understanding, this framework agreement to end the Iran war looking set to be signed on Friday, what are the key threats to seeing this through? What are the next steps and what are the potential implications for the UK? Well, the biggest threat is almost certainly Prime Minister Netanyahu's campaign against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. It's pretty clear Netanyahu believes that this is not part of the deal between America and Iran. They're not a signatory to that agreement after all. And besides, Prime Minister Netanyahu has his own national priorities, and it's clearly not helpful to him to appear subservient to President Trump. But if any form of deal is to be done, President Trump has already gone on to his Truth Social saying, let the oil flow. But what needs to happen in order to enable the oil to flow and actually start to ease the global energy crisis? Well, right at the start, before the war was started, the flow of oil through the Strait of Hormuz was through established lanes. One of them to the south was outbound. It's 2 mile wide. There's a 2 mile buffer zone to make sure there's no collisions, and then incoming traffic goes to the north, all around the centre of the strait. But right at the start of the war, Iran actually laid a minefield just to the southern side of the Strait of Hormuz. That was for 2 reasons, one of which it forces traffic to go up near Larak Island and Keshem Island here, put them a lot closer to Iran, and therefore means that they can threaten that traffic, effectively closing the strait, but also potentially being able to charge some sort of toll at the same time. Now, it's also clear that America, in the last few weeks, has actually managed to open its own little channel, just hugging the Iranian coastline here, to get some vessels out. It's a longer distance away from Iran, and it was also using military escorts to get through. The challenge, of course, is that they only were managing to get about 10% of the normal traffic flowing there, so it just wasn't sustainable. You need about 150 vessels a day to move through the Strait of Hormuz. So the first priority for the strait is to actually clear that minefield. The challenge, of course, is that the Iranians have quite a number of mines, a total of about 5,000 is believed. Probably not using floating mines. They can be very difficult to track and will probably present a threat as much to the Iranians as anybody else. These moored mines are by far and away the most likely to be used, and potentially some seabed mines. The question is, how many are actually in the strait? Well, most professionals believe it's probably less than 12. That's not a big challenge to clear them as long as you have specialist equipment. Now, the Europeans have stood ready to help clear the Strait of Hormuz, but only when hostilities were ended. That looks like we're approaching that point, and that's why the Royal Navy looks as if it's got the RFA Lime Bay ready, a minesweeping capability, but uses autonomous drones to identify the mines and then clear them. Once the minefield is cleared, then the priority will be to get the full vessels out of the Strait of Hormuz, empty vessels back in, clear the backlog, and then establish a more steady state. Probably take a few weeks to get there. But of course, whatever is agreed between Iran and America, what is clear is that Iran can close the Strait of Hormuz at any time it sees fit. That genie is out of the bottle, difficult to put back. Now, this war has been devastating for a lot of the Middle East countries. It's been economically a disaster, and they'll be looking at ways that they can mitigate the threat of this happening again in the future. That threat is 2 parts, one of which, how do they reduce their dependency of getting the energy out through the Strait of Hormuz? Saudi Arabia has already done this by building a pipeline across so it can offload through ports into the Red Sea. The UAE is looking to move south to try and offload its oil there, and I expect we'll see a lot more effort by Middle East countries to do similar investments in infrastructure. But the key issue is, how do they protect themselves against future attacks from Iran? Now, in the past, their strategy has been to allow forward basing of American bases around the region, and therefore America will provide support in the event of some sort of war. The problem is, in this case, America gave them no warning that they were going to be going and attacking Iran, and that has left the Middle East countries vulnerable. In addition to that, although they live under the umbrella of some of the best missile defense systems in the world, Patriot systems here, Aegis and THAAD, the harsh reality is ballistic missiles, some of them got through. And what is interesting, even a third world nation like Iran, at least when it comes to military capability, these ballistic missiles, they're very long range, they're very difficult to shoot down, and they're very accurate. And some of them have caused a lot of damage. Qatar reckons it'll be 5 years before they repair their infrastructure. That's going to be a major focus of attention for the Middle East partners over the coming year. But of course, it's not just the Middle East that has lessons to learn from this. So does the UK. The UK has no ballistic missile defences, and our principal threat, Russia, is not a third-tier nation. It's a first-tier nation with a heavy stock of ballistic missiles. That's why pressure is building on the British government to address critical shortfalls in our military capability, both offensive and, more crucially, defensive.